Hello and welcome to the SingaporeConnect COVID-19 Forum. For those of you joining us the first time, SingaporeConnect is a San Francisco Bay Area-based volunteer-run overseas Singaporean group which was started almost 20 years ago. Since March 15th this year, SingaporeConnect has been facilitating these community updates on the evolving COVID-19 situation in partnership with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Singapore Global Network. We've also had special guest subject matter experts from our community. In our previous sessions, we've addressed the impact of COVID-19 on personal and professional topics like COVID-19 prevention, the search for the COVID-19 cure, mental health during shelter in place, the Singapore-US visa situation, job opportunities in Singapore, education, Singaporean Bay Area restaurants, as well as cooking Singaporean food at home. Today, in our 12th session, we will be featuring three key topics: voting, visas, and venture capital. In this segment on venture capital, Michael Lintz of Golden Gate Ventures will discuss economic implications and opportunities in the post-COVID-19 era. He will share thoughts on what VCs are interested in these days and how to pitch our business ideas. Welcome, Michael, and thank you for joining us today from Singapore. Michael, could you perhaps give us a quick introduction of yourself, please?
Yeah, of course, happy to do so. And thank you for inviting me to speak to this esteemed group. Feel very warmed and welcome. Thank you. So my name is Michael. I've been in Singapore for about 7 years. I'm 45 years old, and I'll give a brief background before we kind of dive into the economic stuff. So I'm Dutch, born and raised, although my family is from the Dutch Caribbean. So there's a small island called Aruba. That's where my parents hail from. But they decided to, as much people from the island did, move to the Netherlands. It used to be a Dutch colony a long time ago. So born and raised there. I've always been interested in technology. So I decided to follow my dad's footsteps and do a technical university, which I graduated from. Ended up working for ING for a few years, which is a large bank in the Netherlands. And I was fortunate enough to work on one of their first e-commerce developments back in the days. What it actually helped me learn was that I was really more interested in entrepreneurship than anything else. So decided to sell the house, the car, everything that I could sell, and build my own business with two neighborhood friends. So we decided to build what's called a data center. Luckily enough, the company did relatively well. We got acquired 6 years later, and I wanted to spend more time on giving back to the community and doing some investments. So long story short, I worked for 4 years with the Dutch Prime Minister on some of the economic developments. Also learned I didn't like politics that much, so really wanted to focus my time on investing. I did, prior to moving to Singapore, spent some time in Boston. So I did two executive courses at Harvard Business School, where funny enough, one of my classmates, he moved to Singapore, made an introduction to Golden Gate Ventures as they were just starting. I met the guys and totally fell in love with what was happening in the ecosystem. Told my wife and then at the time 1-year-old daughter that we're moving to Singapore. Led to a few arguments, but eventually managed to convince them, and here we are. So currently, I'm a partner at Golden Gate Ventures. We're an early stage venture capital fund in Singapore, but we focus on the region, which means that we invest from Malaysia to Vietnam to Philippines, Indonesia, Thailand, and are very active. We have over 50 portfolio companies across 7 countries. And we've also been very active in supporting and helping the ecosystems. And for a few relevant names, we have some investors associated with us that have invested in our firm. One of them is Temasek, out of Singapore, of course. But we also have Eduardo Severin, who's the co-founder of Facebook, who also lives in Singapore as an investor across a number of our funds.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Wow, love the connection. And it looks like you are quite a marathoner as well. My goodness, I've already gotten feedback from folks. They do not believe you're 45 years old from what you, and for some reason, the photo's not showing up here. But we were just guessing, maybe it's the marathon, 7 marathons. That's a lot of, and all these Ironman stuff you're doing. Maybe something that we need to consider doing too.
I think the seawater might help. That's my best guess.
See what, and humidity in Singapore, you think?
And the humidity in Singapore as well.
Perfect. That's great. Thank you. So let's dive into this. This is awesome information. So you moved from Europe to Singapore, with your friend essentially to join this venture capital firm. That was the key reason. Or were there other reasons as well, um, in terms of the economy, perhaps?
To be very frank, so I didn't when I moved, I didn't know much about Asia in general. We only so actually as part of I did the most stupidest thing ever. So I married my wife just as I started the new business. So of course I had no money. There was like it was all risk. So we weren't able to afford a honeymoon.
Mhm.
So a few years later, when we had a little bit more cash, I decided to do an extended honeymoon. So we did a first trip initially to China, and then we did a short stint in Hong Kong as well. And this
Wow.
was prior to Singapore my only experience with Asia. So for me, the attractiveness of working with Golden Gate Ventures was, well, first of all, the team, just being with amazing people, and then second of all, what I could see was very small hints of what the ecosystem could become over a longer period of time. And one of the most funny stories was when we were fundraising for our second fund, and this is 2014. So I went to the Middle East, I went to the US, of course, went back to Europe, and decided to kind of pitch our fund and also try to pitch the region. I didn't get to pitching our fund because most people had no idea that there was a venture capital ecosystem in Singapore and in the surrounding countries.
Mm.
So I spent half of my pitch explaining what Singapore and Southeast Asia was. Of course, now it's a very different time, but it gave me the confidence that if so little people are aware of this ecosystem, we have a long ways to go, but there's also so much opportunity moving forward as well.
Hmm. That's great. That's good to know. Thank you. So, what makes investing in Europe or US different than Singapore and Southeast Asia?
Yeah, there's a large number of differences. I think one thing that is struck me is when I moved from Netherlands to Singapore was I did my first trip to Indonesia in 2013, 2014. And even the entrepreneurs that we had in our first fund, most of them were Singapore companies. They were super energized, super dynamic. When you had to schedule a meeting, it used to happen like within a few hours. Whilst if I was back in Europe and if I wanted to have a meeting with an entrepreneur, you would have to schedule a meeting and it would take another 2 weeks, and it was relatively formal.
Hmm.
And everything felt super dynamic in Singapore.
Hmm.
So that was a very big difference.
Hmm.
I think what is on the flip side of that was most of these entrepreneurs were first-time entrepreneurs, and then you'll kind of see, they'll make first-time entrepreneur mistakes. For instance, when something goes bad in the business, um, they won't tell you initially, so you will have to kind of find out through other means and doing research and checking the financials. But typically, I was used to like upfront hear from an entrepreneur like Mike, we had a really bad month, we need to change X, Y, and Z, and I need your help with A, B, and C.
Hmm.
Whilst when we made our investments in Singapore, it took a while sort of to get that information out of these entrepreneurs because they felt like, oh my goodness, this is our investor, everything has to go really well. And if something goes wrong, I can't tell them because they're going to be upset with me.
Hmm.
So we had a bit of an sort of an educational journey as well, where we said, entrepreneurship is also about making mistakes, and it's fine if you make those mistakes. So that was one big difference. I think the other one was just the maturity of the financing ecosystem. What we initially found was we had a number of investors just across the region in Asia that were also new to venture investing, and they would come from either real estate or from the public markets, and then they would invest in these startups, and they would have the same expectations as they would have in real estate or in those public markets. So just to give an example, I had a well, now he's a good friend, but an investor from the Philippines was negotiating a seed investment, and mind you, this was I think $100,000 investment, which for him wasn't that much. But he was asking for a majority of the shares. He was asking for a board seat. He wanted to get really involved, hands-on in the business. And we really had to talk to him and said, no, if you look at venture investors across the globe, they take minority stake. You let the entrepreneurs run the business. You're more of a sounding board, and when things go bad, they can of course talk to you. But it's not you. It's not up to you to run the business or to be so involved. So that was a big difference as well. Just the maturity of sort of the local investors. That was very different to US and Europe. And then maybe lastly, if I look at the sort of the maturity of the different sectors. So over the last few years, people have been talking about deep tech or artificial intelligence, life science, biotech. I think in the beginning, we saw those technologies kind of evolve in Israel or in Europe or in the US or even in China, but we didn't see that much in Singapore or the surrounding countries because the ecosystem was so young. Yeah, entrepreneurs just didn't have that much experience with different technologies, etc. So there was a bit of a difference between where entrepreneurs and companies focus on across Southeast Asia versus where companies focus on in Europe or in the US.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Thank you. Now, as we think of the next, step as you move into Asia, what were some of the biggest takeaways for you as a VC, or even on the personal front?
Yeah, so one is that being an added value investor really means something here.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of investors, of course, we have it as part of their strategy, but it's really a question from entrepreneurs when they say, I definitely want your fund to invest in my business, but I also want you really as a sounding board, and I want to be able to have you on the phone and get an understanding of what does it mean for me to build a business. So that was one of the biggest learnings for me, just to be patient, really kind of listen to the entrepreneurs, take time to yeah take time to again to really understand where their pain points are,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to focus on that side. I think that
Got it.
was that was a big difference for me. Yeah.
Got it. What has Golden Gate's investment strategy been over the years?
Yeah, so we started out as a seed investor. So our first fund was around 10 million.
Mm-hmm.
We did seed deals, but we said we want to focus on companies that are able to expand beyond one country. So if we would invest in a company in Singapore that is in healthcare, we would expect them to be in at least one other country in terms of scalability.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is we looked very much at what does the consumer space look like, and how is it going to evolve over the years. So as in Europe, where you have maybe more archaic infrastructures, we felt there's a time to kind of leapfrog some technologies and really fast forward payments, healthcare, education. So we wanted to look at what does it mean for the consumer space to effectively um, change how a consumer behaves and interacts with businesses across the region. So that was a big part of it as well. And I think the third part was we wanted to be an inclusive firm. So we spend a lot of time on working with our investors, working with our partners, work with corporations, work with family conglomerates to help them shape up how they work with companies, and that our portfolio has the ability to work with them as well.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Now, if we compare Singapore or Southeast Asia as a region versus China and India, it seems, that there are questions around the size of the economy as well as maybe the talent. How does it seem still competitive and interesting?
Yeah, the first question we got when we started the firm and sort of really started expanding was, why would you as an investor only focus on Southeast Asia and not invest in China or India?
Yeah.
And we felt that those ecosystems are so different and mature in their own way that either we would have to be there full time with a dedicated team, but otherwise it doesn't make no sense for us to look at any investments in those ecosystems. One, they are extremely competitive, and they've been that for a longer time. There's already a large amount of capital in those both those countries. But I think what is interesting is what we've learned over the years is that if you're able to build a cross-border business in Southeast Asia, you're able to build a competitive advantage.
Mm-hmm.
So a large number of companies that are in either logistics or in the commerce space have been able to fend off sort of international competitors because they understand local cultures, they understand local languages, they understand the little intricacies, what it means to do business in Vietnam versus Indonesia. And that has been a big success factor for local startups versus people coming in. I would say on the other hand, if you we do work with a large number of bigger Chinese corporations in co-investments or kind of work with our portfolio. We even took our entire portfolio to Beijing last year for a conference where we said what are the comparisons and the lessons learned from the Chinese ecosystem that you can actually replicate for this Southeast Asian ecosystem as well. So for us, it is amazing because it gives kind of a glimpse in the future if we look at China per se. Um, from an India perspective, we do get investment requests out of India where companies are expanding to the region. But for us, for any company that is not in Singapore or in any of the Southeast Asian countries, the bar is just way much higher for us to make an investment because again, they just don't have that local experience and local knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Makes a lot of sense. Now, speaking of experience and knowledge, what are you looking for in an entrepreneur, and how can they best sort of make a pitch to someone like you?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that go into entrepreneurship, and because we invest at such an early stage, so
Mhm.
we typically invest in what we call a seed or Series A round. So those are all very early stage rounds. Um, the first thing we have to try and take a glimpse into the future as well. So you have to get an understanding of, is this specific entrepreneur going to be able to lead the company in the next 3, 4, 5, 7 years? So
Mhm.
that's the first question we have. So a lot of our questions revolve around, what kind of person are you? What motivates you? What's your passion? What keeps you awake at night? What are your concerns?
Mhm.
To really get a better understanding of the person, because for 60 to 70%, our decision is going to be only based on the entrepreneurs or the founding team to give us enough comfort to invest in their business. So that's one. So
Mhm.
that's very important. And then if it's a co-founder led company where there's more founders, it's also around the dynamic. Because yeah, over the years people fight, get into arguments, things go wrong, and we want to understand how that eventually will end up in this partnership. So we definitely look at dynamic between co-founders. The second thing is, of course, the business model and how scalable is this for the future. So, do we think that this particular business is able to go cross border? How competitive is this space? Are there any local incumbents? Are there family conglomerates that are already in this space? It's going to make it very difficult to penetrate. So, you look at the business model and the scalability of it, and then, of course, we look at technology as well. So, is there anything unique, innovative, change making, or something having an impact to the business as well, as part of kind of our due diligence when you look into a company?
Got it. Got it. So, Michael, in this current climate, how has this changed your investment strategy? Are there specific industries that you're more focused on versus others?
Yeah. So actually, when we had the start of was in March, yeah, March, we had a big session with the entire team and said,
Mhm.
how does COVID in general will affect our investment strategy? And are there things we need to do differently than we did before? So the first thing we said was because we invest over a 10-year horizon, we didn't want to make a huge change to our investment strategy because although the impact of COVID is very deep, into the local economies, but and also into the founders that we've invested in, we also need to again take this 10-year approach. So we don't want to suddenly make a change in our investment strategy per se. So we haven't decided to do any COVID-related investments. On the other hand, we do see a number of industries that are performing way better than others.
Mm-hmm.
I'll exclude the travel industry, which is in a difficult position at the moment. But if you, for instance, look at digital health, telemedicine, micro insurance, online payments, online education.
Mm-hmm.
Those are five sectors that have seen huge increases over the last months. We've even seen in the logistics space, specifically in last mile logistics, that it
Mm-hmm.
was very difficult for these companies to even manage capacity
Mm-hmm.
because the requests that they were getting was from e-commerce stores, but they were also getting a new influx of customers that were these traditional merchants that suddenly needed to transition towards e-commerce. So we
Mm-hmm.
did pay attention to more of those strategies, but we didn't make a major shift in our investment strategy. I think the one thing that has happened across the board is it's been more difficult for companies to fundraise because most VCs have said, I want to spend more time on our existing portfolio as opposed to looking at new investments. So new investments definitely have slowed down across the board.
Got it. Having said that, Michael, I know we talked about this in our preparation, that you were open to speaking to some of our people to hear some pitches as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the fun thing is we did our first fully online deal 4 weeks ago, where
Wow.
we literally met the founder, through email, had Zoom calls and Zoom conversations. We had to do our due diligence over the phone as well, or over Zoom. So all went well. We eventually made the investment,
Mhm.
yeah, we're definitely open for business. So we're always keen to hear pitches of new founders.
That's awesome because we have over 20, almost 20 to 30 folks on, in the pre-survey who said they would want to pitch to you, Michael. So
Oh,
look out
cool. That's
for
awesome.
that.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
that's,
definitely.
that's a cool pipeline. And I know some awesome, talented people who are here as well in some of the industries you discussed. So this is great. So everyone, thank you very much. And Michael, thank you very much for this introduction on the state of the economy. It's very heartening to know that, you know, the investment community thinks that things are going well in Asia still, and there are opportunities out there. I love the industries you highlighted, make a lot of sense. Digital health, for example, we're all trying to do a lot more of that in online e-commerce. They certainly make a lot of sense. And I know, many of us who want to continue this conversation can reach out to you via
Please do. Yeah.
LinkedIn as well. Yes. So I've included your LinkedIn profile here for folks to connect. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, everyone. Take care.
Thank you,
Thanks, Jasmine.
Michael. Yes,
Bye bye.
thank you. And David, in the light of the Michael's update in terms of the economic opportunities in Asia, I think Singapore Global Network can also help some Singaporeans going back there with a nice landing zone with resources. Yes, would you like to
Yeah.
share? Mhm.
Hello, Jasmine.
Hello.
Hi, everyone. So just want to share with everyone that on the SGN front, we have been engaging with a lot of Singaporeans here in the US. And similar to what Junman also mentioned earlier, I think everyone's situation is very unique. So on our end, as part of the Singapore Global Network, which is part of the Singapore government, we are here for you, especially during this period of time where you might encounter a lot of challenges, whether it's in terms of your personal or whether it's in terms of your working life. So feel free to reach out to me. I think you realize that for the Zoom registration for this week, we actually explicitly mentioned whether you would like to sign up for the Singapore Global Network. So for those of you who have acknowledged and that you are okay to sign up with SGN, I'll send an email after this as well to introduce myself, share a little bit more about what SGN can offer for you guys. And I really encourage all of you to reach out to me to whether it's with regard to personal reasons or with regard to opportunities back home in Singapore, more than happy to see how I can connect you with the right people. I mean, ultimately, that's the whole essence of being part of a network. So yeah, so I'll send an email out to everyone. And as mentioned before for previous forums, I think many of times you have heard already, this session could not be possible without the hard work of Singapore Connect. So Maxine, Jasmine, the MFA folks over here as well, Michael for giving his time, early on a Monday morning to talk to you guys, and of course Junwen, who has been so fantastic for us. So all these people are part of the community, and really, I think there's one thing that shines through, which is the community spirit. So for those of you out there who feel that you want to help out, especially for this forum, you have ideas, you want to share, or you just want to volunteer, more than happy to talk to you as well. So when I send out an email, just feel free to engage me. Yeah.
That's fabulous indeed. Yeah, I think we have each other to thank for this. This has indeed really been a community, these past months, ever since we started on March 15th. David, thank you as well for being a lot of the catalyst behind this, behind the scenes and in front, with all the work you're doing in WhatsApp groups, Slack and everything, just to get the news flowing among all of us, right? So thank you to Singapore Global Network and David, particularly for the hard work and for bringing us all together. This is awesome. So everyone, this has been, I think, another super informative session. I've learned a lot about not just the voting process, but also the visa situation. And of course, what's going on with the VCs with respect to their take on the economy and the opportunities out there. So, I really appreciate everyone joining us this evening as well. I think we will be having our next session in about 2 weeks' time. Many of you have proposed different topics. We certainly are looking forward to, some of you stepping up if you'd like to contribute as well and to be a speaker in our next forum for some of the topics we have coming up too. I think that would be just before, I think as we go through this, it will be very close to the election period too, so there might be even more questions there. But look out for our next session, which is going to be in 2 weeks. As we wrap up, just a quick round, Daryl, any final notes before we sign off from the MFA side?
Hi, Jasmine. Just repeat my earlier point. Do kind of like tune in, because nomination day is on the 30th of June, and we'll be reaching out to all registered overseas voters very shortly after. Thanks.
Thank you. That's great advice. Thank you. Perfect. Appreciate all your hard work there. This has been quite a year. Not only do we have COVID, we also have elections at the same time. You guys have certainly been keeping super busy. So thank you for this. And I think as a community, we've been trying to be as, understanding as well. But so thanks for your responses. Junwen, any parting words from your end?
No, but thank you very much for doing this.
Thank you for coming and joining us. We find ourselves hopefully not more in this situation. In fact, we had one question from the audience, about whether there might be further proclamations coming down the pipe. And this is Trump, right? How would any?
Yeah, it's definitely something. It's a valid concern, because even this proclamation that we just talked about tonight talks about the possibility of modifying it when necessary.
Got it.
So this would be revisited.
Okay.
So.
Got it. Interesting times indeed. Thank you, Junwen, and thank you for hopping on so quickly in response to the community. In fact, I must say there's a background story to this. When this came out, we all knew we were going to get Junwen, and Junwen was like, well, I have to do some research on this. This is all happening real time. In the meantime, we had Zhitong, from the Berkeley crew of like, let me put together some questions already for Junwen. And then before we knew it, we had over 20 questions from some of you guys out there in the community. So this has truly been a lot of communication and excitement over this topic. So thanks for taking care of us, Junwen.
Sure.
Mark, parting words from SingaporeConnect.
We in SingaporeConnect are amazed by how strong the participation in these forums are. We really look forward to meeting many of you in person when we can next have a physical event. These events are put together with the hard work of many people, and we thank them. I'd like to add, Let's recall the forum started to try help those in our community in need. Please reach out to us if you know of such people. We are stronger when united together.
I think, from Singapore Connect's perspective, we're all, really grateful for all of you being with us through this journey since March 15th. This has indeed been a super interesting period for all of us, unprecedented times, but also as a community, we've really come together as a team. I think the people attending these calls, are not just Bay Area folks. And I was saying, like lots of people from all over the Bay, as well as around the country. We're even noticing folks from the East Coast, dialing in super late. We're going to try to reduce the length of these sessions so that we have fewer topics. But today we just, these topics just really needed to be covered because there was so much anxiety in the community. So once again, many thanks to all the speakers and to all of you for joining. It's going to keep our fingers crossed, for the visas and for the news related to what we need to do for voting. Meantime, everybody stay healthy and we'll talk to you guys soon in 2 weeks. Bye for now. Thank you again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.